Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, enemies are your friend. We are our woundings, and everything that cuts you and hurts you and scars you is good for you, because it reminds you of your humanity, and it makes you empathetic to the suffering of others. Happiness is meaningless and selfish. You don't live a life to be happy. You live a life to be at least a neutral person. Putting back what you took from the world is the base definition of a human being. And if you're lucky, you're a right person who is able to add just a little bit more to the world than what you clawed away. Enemies make you a better person. They question you, and they deceive you, and they lie to you, and they purposefully try to hurt you. And enemies test your values under fire. Do you believe in the heat of the day what you pray about at night? Your enemies know the answer to that question, but do you? The world is black and white, and yet we try to live protected in the grays. We cannot survive in the in-between. We have to choose one choice over another. We mark a path and walk it. Taking on an enemy means you're doing something right. Something in your life is at stake, and that something has intrinsic value beyond the self. And taking on an enemy can be invisible and non-confrontational. It's all about realization and definition and quiet countenance. Enemies try to control you first by not liking you. Too many of us want to be liked by default, to command others to touch us and stroke us and force their appreciation upon us. But the enemy knows better. The enemy only conditionally likes you. Do this for me, then I'll do that for you. Don't do that, or I won't like you. The trick is not to care if your enemy likes you or not, but then don't let your enemy know that you know. You can then ply their game and tell them what they think they want to know, and then be in total control of both sides, the good and the bad, of that communication dyad. Enemies try to control you last through sustained negative energy and reputation damage. So, redirect silently and invisibly their energy back at them through indifference and repurposing. They won't be able to backtrack the osmosis of their negative flow. Now, I'm sure I have a lot of enemies, and many of them are probably unknown because I don't know they're there. But if you're doing it right, if you are living correctly and breathing in the world, you too have a lot of enemies. But you too may not be aware of them or how close they are to surrounding you. We're always going to have people who oppose us. And since there's nothing worse in life than a gray life, and since the world is full of darkness and not much light, choosing the sun over the moon is a cleaving choice that instantly makes you enemies of all the children of the moon. I don't care as much about my enemies as they tend to care about me, and that makes it worse for them, not me. You can't control who decides to set themselves against you as a mortal enemy. You just live your life and make your decisions. And for those around you who wish to control you and who need to threaten you, the best defense is not offense, but dissipation. Disappear. Fuzz. Blur. Fog. When someone strikes out at you, dissipate into thousands of droplets of mist. Don't directly retaliate. Safely land in 1,000 different positions and angles around them. And then do nothing. Watch. Wait. Encapsulate. You've created your own early warning system. Aristotle said the antidote to 50 enemies is one friend. But that was in his time. In our time, in our moral condemnation, we have to cope with the notion that even our friends will become our enemies. And that's because nothing comes without something. We are all attached to something. And that something that attaches us, that friendship, is binding, sometimes both ways equally. But more often than not, friendships are more one way than the other. And in that discrepancy of equality against the human norm, resentments fiddle and attitudes arise, and best friends are suddenly sworn enemies. Because that is the way of nature. And one sworn enemy is more powerful than 100 false friendships in name and behavior only. We should not actively seek out our enemies to create them or entice them into envy and jealousy and hatred. Our enemies will come about preternaturally, because enemies arrive with our success and joy and choosing the right pathway. Enemies are there to tempt and to torment, and that's why so many of us are our own worst enemies, because we don't accept who we are or what we were born to become. Embrace that deep you of you, because to do otherwise is to be other and distant and disconnected, all with the world inside of you that is churning and thundering for your attention. Do not actively seek out becoming someone else's enemy. Let them enemize first. You're above it all, because you must remain in the sky and of the hard earth. Being an enemy is the easy way out. You can be mean and jealous and not care about your reputation in the world. And while that may feel satisfying in the moment, the residual effect is only temporary and sanctioned. Being someone else's enemy will make you brittle, and you'll break. You won't break them. You just bust open yourself, and you are left with the pieces of you that no longer fit and that you no longer recognize. Not being an active enemy doesn't mean you have to befriend everyone. Remember, a friend is a temporary label until that friendship unravels into fiendishness and enemization. Being helpful takes time and effort and some concentration. But you can be neutral and kind easily by default. That really takes no effort at all if you practice a bit. Welcome all comers. Embrace every enemy. Let everyone in the world feel free to loathe you and hate you and love you without returning the bad energy. You can claw back energy from their negative attention and turn it right back around on them by simply being kind to them. Enemies have no idea how to deal with kindness when it is returned in kind for hatred. And that is the secret to defeating anyone who dares to try to crush you in their own misery. Kindness. Kindness is free, and it's brutally effective in removing all stains and causation from those who wish to expose and damage you. Thanks for listening. Be a human meme.